Mark Bare Naked Willie, what is happening, brother? How you doing today?
Dave Cooper Live. This is my favorite day of the week. It's BS Friday Day.
It is BS Friday Day, and we're going to have another great show today because we are not just talking BS. We are getting into the science of the BS, building science all day, every Friday. Mark, you live building science every day of the week, every day of the month, every minute in the year, and it never gets boring. It only gets better, right?
Well, there's so many amazing professionals like the folks we're having on today that get to work in labs and surrounded by very gifted professionals, right? And the
That's
fact
right.
that we get to tour these places, the fact that we get to sit at the table and share their voices. Oh my gosh, brother. Happy Friday, Dave.
It is a happy Friday, man. We're still hanging out in beautiful Montana. We're doing all kinds of fun stuff out here. In fact, we're even going to have a fun building science show tomorrow.
On Saturday?
We are, well, it's a little building science. We're doing our coffee with Dave, but I think we're going to go live again at 1 o'clock. And it's going to be a surprise, but we're going to show another dry stack home that's complete because we did this last Saturday. It's about 4 hours from here, and we're going to do a special live show at 1 o'clock this Saturday just because it should be shown. It's really cool stuff.
I love it. So this is dry stack, you're saying. So are you talking about the mortar bed is dry?
Mortar bed, cordwood through the wall, and filled with sawdust as insulation.
Wow.
I'm not kidding you. It's a cool thing. It's really cool. And it doesn't burn. You would think this stuff would burn, but it doesn't burn. It smolders if it catches fire. So I don't know. I'm getting ready to learn a whole bunch about it, Mark. We got a lot of fun stuff coming up. We're going to be doing some unique shows here in the future, which is going to be great too as we travel across the country. But that's not why we're here today. What are we going to talk about today, Mark?
Well, I just want to say I'm glad for what you're doing tomorrow. So I'll be there virtually, and I'll give you as many thumbs up as I can because it sounds like a big thumbs up visit. Today, I'm not going to say who we're bringing on, Dave. That's not fair. I think one of our good friends and one of our earliest presenters should do the justice, and her name is Katie Kaluzny.
In the house. What's happening, Katie? How are you?
Good morning, Dave.
Awesome to see you.
Good afternoon. Hi, Mark. How are you? Your props are getting better and better.
I'm telling you.
I thank you for the thanks, but really they're just props. Katie, I'm happy because you're here.
Well, I'm happy to be here. It's so exciting to see you guys. I know it's been a little bit since I've been on, but thank you so much for having me back, especially to surprise one of my very good friends. So I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely.
Isn't it Jason's fault that you're so busy?
It really is. I'll get into that in my intro, I promise.
All right. Well, listen, we definitely want to learn some good stuff on Jason as well. But Katie, first, why don't you just tell everybody who you are for a quick second? You've been a big supporter of our show. You've been on the show many times. So most people probably know you, but we have several each week that are new to our show, and they should know you. And we're all about promoting and supporting everybody in this industry. And Katie, you are one of the biggest proponents in the industry that we know. So the show is yours. Take it away and then jump right into introducing our next guest.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Dave. Thanks, Mark. My name is Katie Kaluzny. I'm the Associate Director at the Illinois Green Alliance, which is a nonprofit in Illinois working to promote green building best practices and sustainable communities. We're on a path to mainstreaming net zero buildings for everyone. And so all of our education programs that we put on for professionals and for community leaders are helping to lead towards that effort. So I love working with existing buildings, with nonprofits, with commercial office. This is kind of my thing, is bringing people together to work on sharing knowledge about best practices on green buildings. So Building Science Friday is one of my favorite places to be. I have some upcoming programs that I'm excited about. One of them is called Heat Pump Palooza, which we're going to nerd out about heat pumps. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a bit when I intro Jason. And we also have a really cool program coming up on reflecting on equity, inclusion, and conscious communication in your projects. And again, that's for green building professionals that are looking at that ED&I practice throughout their jobs. So that one should be really cool. And of course, the upcoming summer Green Built Home Tour, which I hope to be back or one of my colleagues be back soon on BS Friday to talk more about that. But we're excited to do that again this year. So thanks for having me. Excited to intro Jason next, if that's okay.
Jump right into it. Do not wait another moment because he has a presentation to do. But first,
I have to interrupt though, Dave. She said a new T-shirt, and I'll bet Jennifer caught it. And that is, introducing people and making connections is just my thing. That's what Katie said. The other part I liked, and we'll have to add to the chat, is Heat Pump-A-Palooza and the Jedi training, which is perfect. So take it away, Katie.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark.
Heat Pump and Palooza. Hold on one second, Katie. Mark, we first got to let everybody know that we are live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. Why are we live on Twitch, Katie?
Because it's the coolest place to be.
That's right. That's right. Why else there, Mr. Mark Willie?
Greg Ugaldi says the future of our industry is our youth. So those that are playing Minecraft jump right from Twitch into digital twinning. So we can't beat that. BIM for everyone.
BIM for everybody. That's right, everybody. Dave Cooper Live. We are bringing you the people and the processes that are building it better. We are always seeking out the best and the brightest in construction and discovering all the ways that innovative buildings come to life. And today is no different. So, Katie, let's hop into it. Go for it.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for having me. Jason LaFleur is your amazing, amazing guest today. I've known him for almost 15 years now. Back in the days when he used to work at the Appraisal Institute. He then founded one of the coolest companies that I know and has hired the awesomest people that I still know today, Eco Achievers. So I'm sure he'll tell you more about that. And he is a volunteer extraordinaire. He's volunteered for me every year. He's always willing to teach a class, share his knowledge, engage adult learners in an awesome way. He's just been a great person to run ideas off of and work with Illinois Green over the past many, many years. And he came to me with this really wacky idea of starting a Greenbelt home tour back in 2012, I think, which I'm still doing 9 years later. So thank you, Jason, for that and all the work that that's brought, but also all the great connections and homes we made a feature, which has been 99 homes so far over the last 8 years. And now he's speaking at a couple of my upcoming events, including the Heat Pump Palooza. And he's going to be sharing some things that he's doing at his own home during the Greenbelt Home Tour this year. So, Jason, you're stuck with me for life. We're going to do green building stuff forever. He's now working in his capacity at GTI, nerding out about all of the cool technology, testing it all out, and teaching us what we need to know. So, thank you so much for being here today, Jason. And it's my pleasure to introduce you.
Hey, welcome Jason to the show.
Great. Thank you, Katie. That was better than I think I've ever said myself. Very well done. And it's
been a great show, everybody. Thanks, Jason, for showing up today. We had a really good time. I love it.
The funny thing is, 9 years ago, we started that Greenbelt home tour, and I think right now my son's in another room working on his digital twin Minecraft skills right now. So you see how we sort of just continue to grow this industry. It's great.
I think your son was in your arms for that first meeting, wasn't he? Didn't your wife bring him over for one of the first meetings?
No, he was in the womb still when we first started planning, but
all the schemes.
Yeah. Well, listen, let's hop into this, Jason. I know you have a pretty in-depth presentation we're going to go through today as well. So before we go any further, why don't you take 2 minutes and we want to know everything about you from the moment you were born to this very moment in time. Do not leave out any of the good stuff or we will call your mother. And when I say we, Miss Willie, and I'm sure Katie will as well, we will sniff out BS. So you got 2 minutes to do it. Go for it.
Sure. So yeah, it's been an incredible journey, and one of the things that's great about this industry is the community that we've all formed over the years. So I think Mark and Katie help exemplify that, and it's just been a fun journey, and in continuing to push boundaries and markets and technologies. And so Katie gave you a pretty good overview. I really got into building science and dove in head first after building curriculum for real estate appraisers and started building courses on how to value green buildings, specifically commercial buildings, residential buildings. And, the big issue for the appraisers was, well, this is great stuff, but there's not enough data. We need more data. So I said, okay, well, then they need buildings that are built. So I started helping project teams go through and develop and improve their building practices to get more green buildings out there in the market. Ended up starting my own firm, Eco Achievers. Incredible journey, working with a lot of forward-thinking clients, people doing a passive house and zero energy design and efficient multifamily buildings that were, looking to bring some economic value to the owners and deliver the environmental benefits, right? So, and during that process, one of my clients was a research group that I'm now employed with. I got a little frustrated, to be honest, about the lack of market transformation happening and driving past dozens and hundreds of buildings that were built to the minimum bar to, a D- code level, as Mark knows, and wondering how we can scale this things better for the built environment. And that's what really attracted me to GTI, is getting a little bit further upstream and in commercial product development and technology deployment. So that's kind of what I'm doing now, and I love it. It's great. We get to work with new emerging technologies and figure out a way to make it better for and easier for people to start building these into their practices. So we're doing some interesting work. I'm excited to share today, and I'm going to bring on a colleague of mine. I work at GTI, formerly known as the Gas Technology Institute, but now just GTI. But to get past that G a little bit, I brought in a friend, Ram Narayanamurthy, who is the program manager for advanced buildings at EPRI. He's might be in and out today. I hope we have a good connection when we need to hear from him. He's actually, what a guy. He's actually calling in and joining us today on his way back from vacation. So, a very upstanding guy. So, yeah, let's bring in Ram.
Hey, Ram, how are you today? You're muted.
I'm doing well, thank you, and thank you guys. As you can see, right, I am.
Oh, we were afraid we were going to have some signal issues with that.
I'm interpreting for him, Dave. He's driving down the coast of California, and we're all jealous.
He is. You see that sunroof above his head? I need some shade. I'm getting too tan being out here in the middle of the desert. But hopefully he can get his signal fixed, and we'll bring him back in, Jason, if that's all right.
Sure.
So, Jason, what are we covering today's topic? Why don't you give us the broad overview of what you do and why it's so important and what problems you guys are solving, so we can share it with the rest of the community out there and take our conversation to the next level with your presentation.
Yeah, sure. I've done many courses for Katie over the years, multi-day programs, but I figured, how can I really get a lot of information in a small amount of time? So I figured we could talk about hydrogen, heat pumps, and hybrid HVAC systems. So, essentially, really what the work that I want to share is, how can we work towards decarbonized buildings with carbon-free combustion, right? Yeah. We have a lot of buildings, a lot of homes that use natural gas, and there's a lot of new construction allows for a lot of opportunities with electric equipment. But what about all the existing buildings that are out there? How can we decarbonize that built environment? Because we don't have a lot of time, right? As many of us know. So what can we do to improve that and scale that up quicker?
With hydrogen, really? Hydrogen. I've not heard of hydrogen. I love it.
So yeah. Well, you'll hear a little bit about it today, and got some photos and videos even, I think.
I'm thrilled because in the journey for a carbon-less world, right, you're also bringing us to the awareness of the carbon disasters that are out there. And skilled teams can broadcast that message very far. And the thing is, we don't have enough skilled teams broadcasting it. And there's many groups working on it. But the word is not getting out. So we're thrilled that you're delivering that today. and yet again in the near future with Illinois Green. It's great.
Yeah, for sure. All right, everybody, listen, hit that like and share button right now. We are live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. And guess what? If you're not following Jason LaFleur and Katie Kaluzny, and you will be wrong, follow them right after this show. Do not leave this channel unless you're going to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Then you can leave and watch it there and subscribe at the same time. But without that, Mark, why don't you kick us off and let's take this into presentation mode, because I think
so. I saw the slides and I'm ready for this. There's a couple really smart folks in the audience that we haven't met, and there's some smart folks that have been here quite a bit. So I encourage you to take pictures of what they're showing and to form your question in the comments with a cue so we could get back to them. Jason promises to answer them all live or after the show, and I promise to distract him as much as I can.
Yes, and Mark, I noticed your beard is shorter today. I just want everybody to notice Mark's beard is shorter today. He cut it. Did you guys notice that?
I was noticing I haven't seen Jason and Mark next to each other in quite some time, and I feel like maybe Jason has surpassed Mark somehow in the beard.
So Katie, I've seen Jason's presentation so many times that when he changes them from week to week, I actually know the slides that he's changed. So I think we can actually be ventriloquists for one another at some point, and that'd be great. It's just his slides are the best.
The best. All right, well, let's get to the best with Jason. Jason, I'm going to put your presentation up on the screen. Are you ready to go?
Yeah, let's do it.
Damn. Have at it, man.
All right, so there's a pre-pandemic photo of me. I guess I need to update LinkedIn sooner or later here. But for people that want contact information, it's all there for you. Will note that if you like what you hear today, I'm looking for help. I'm hiring. We actually have 15 open positions at GTI right now. So help lead the way here. Also have a photo here of what we'll be talking about with Katie's program that she mentioned, Heat Pump-a-Palooza. We'll be talking about air source heat pumps, geothermal heat pumps, and a little bit of a preview today of thermally driven or gas-fired heat pumps. And this is actually a photo of my own house, of the system that's on there. Probably one of the only houses that has both a gas heat pump and a cold climate air source heat pump on it in North America right now. But that's some of the fun stuff we get to do and play with. So Ram's here as well. I think he'll be coming back in a little bit later when he's got a better connection and we got some specific content for him. So with that, for those of you that may not be quite as familiar, we're working increasingly together in an integrated energy environment. And just like PB&J, looking at how electric and gas can work together to help decarbonize our buildings. That's really, I guess, the mission statement that myself and others have. So GTI used to be, like I mentioned, the Gas Technology Institute. We rebranded a couple years ago. We're now just GTI, and really looking towards a low carbon future, low carbon fuels, and deep decarbonization. I'm not going to read the stuff on the slide there, but the image is sort of shows what I do on a daily basis. We work in it's a very large organization, and I tend to work in the buildings sector of that organization, and specifically with projects that are either doing lab testing, modeling and extrapolation of results. And really my bread and butter is in the field deployment and demonstration. So how do things work in the real world? What are the contractor implications? What has to happen for training and development to expand the growth of some of these newer systems and technologies? So one of the things that we've done recently, joining forces with EPRI formally in the form of a collaborative called the Low Carbon Resources Initiative. I'm not going to go into detail on this. Just want to let you know that we've got a formal partnership where we're looking at decarbonizing the electrical power generation sector in addition to the end use building sector. And where that comes into play, we've got a lot of different sponsors that have come into this group. And this makes us well positioned for some of the works like the Department of Energy and others are interested in seeing, like grid interactive efficient buildings, decarbonized energy systems, and really looking at things from a holistic perspective, driven by a focus on low carbon. You can see lots of people there, lots of utilities there, power companies, names you might recognize. So it's kind of a broad industry initiative that we're working with there.
Wow.
Very impressive. I love
There's
it.
there's a lot of companies there.
Yeah, and when it comes into some of the work that we're doing in our laboratory environment, this sort of feeds into the field, right? So right now in our labs, this is just a snapshot of what's going on in our labs that we're also doing some work in the field with too. So we're working on integrated energy systems as it relates to residential nanogrids, very pertinent for many of your audience, I think. Single family, small scale, self-powered systems, self-powered HVAC or self-powered homes. Multifamily microgrid applications with combined heat and power. You can see in the lower left. Residential kitchen indoor air quality is a big issue right now. There's a lot of concern about that, whether it's regardless of what fuel you're using in your cooktop. And I'd love to come on and talk more about that another day. We're doing direct. Yeah,
Jason, before we dive into those, you mentioned the lower left-hand corner was the combined heat and power. And I think this is not a term that people are used to. So can you
that's more of a commercial scale technology that's coming to the residential scale. And so when we say combined heat and power, it's really generating power on site at your building. And then in that process, there's some waste heat, extracting the waste heat to precondition a thermal load like hot water heating, let's say, or driving a heat pump. You can there are systems that drive a heat pump with on-site power generation. So really an enhanced level of resilience.
I love that. I just think we needed that deeper dive. And then right after that, you jumped into the kitchen IAQ, which is the indoor air quality. And there's not much being discussed on that today because Jason's coming back for a whole discussion on it with some other players. So keep going, brother. And thank you, Katie, for being here.
Yeah, thank you, Katie. Katie's hopping off here, everybody. So thanks, Katie, for joining on behalf of all of the BS family. Sorry I covered you up there, Mark, but we appreciate you. So you just go when you need to.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Have a good time, Jason.
Thanks. So other things, fun things like pulling carbon out of the air and capturing it. There's the system on the lower right is actually direct carbon capture. So we can do that and turn it into a product that ends up becoming a commodity and a revenue stream in terms of soap for an organization. But today, really what we're going to talk about, what I wanted to focus on was some of the renewable fuel work that we're doing and hybrid systems. And that's where I think Ram will help a little bit, add some perspective. So that's just a little overview of what's going on in our labs. And again, some of this event, the next step for this is getting it into the field where we start to see things. And one example of field work that we're doing is one of your prior guests, Brandon Weiss from DeVel. We're working with them on an all-electric modular home system incorporating vacuum insulated panels into their building envelope to give an R30 per inch wall assembly and bring down that cost to be a much more affordable level for modular homes. So a lot of fun stuff that we get to play with.
Can I ask you one thing? You said R30 per inch?
Yeah.
Per inch. Yeah.
Per inch.
Vacuum insulated panels. So you just take an old vacuum you have laying around in the garage and put fiberglass around it. It's amazing. No, that's a whole future show. I wanted to ask Jason on this. Many of us were blessed by getting tours of different departments and presentations at GTI. Is that something that opens again, or is that currently not available?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's funny. I just before here, I was scheduling the agenda for one of our first lab tours post-pandemic. So we're everything's opening up again, including our buildings. And we did. Yeah, Mark, you were there when we had Sam Rashkin come in and talk about some interesting topics. So we're looking forward to events like that returning and being able to help educate and show some of the work that we're doing.
I'm asking because there's a bus driving down the road with David and Jennifer Cooper, and if they're passing through GTI land, that would be a fun place to drop into and
love to host you guys.
Let the kids start pulling out wires and pipes and see what happens, right?
Yeah,
we do have
we're
some
all
safety
game.
rules.
And GTI, so everybody knows, is located where, Jason?
Our headquarters is just outside of Chicago, near O'Hare Airport, but we've got offices in Texas, New York, California as well.
Outstanding.
Little known
Outstanding.
fact, Dave, when you drive the GTI, you actually pass a road sign that has my name on it.
It's true. We're right off of Willie
Oh, yeah.
Road.
So I'll stop and put the bare naked in front of it for you.
Yeah.
All right, back to it.
Okay, so this is an interesting slide that just shows the diversity of energy use in a couple areas. Rom's in California, I'm in Illinois, so I thought this would be a fun slide to show. The big loads in California are cooling related, and you can see that being the yellow line, how much energy that uses on a monthly basis over the last few years, versus how much energy is used for heating in a cold climate like Illinois. And, a good analogy is that the image on the lower right there showing that the delta T, or the temperature difference between summer cooling and heating during winter is really severe. We've got some severe challenges decarbonizing those thermal loads. And, it's a challenge that will be tough to meet with just batteries or other technologies that don't have a lot of storage capacity. Especially for those seasonal storage needs that you would have in a cold climate environment.
So, Dave, a simple way of thinking of the delta T is really indicated kind of in the bottom pictures. So, in the winter months, right, it's 0 degrees outside, and you're looking for that 70 on the inside, and then in the warmer climates, right, so it's 76 degrees outside and you're looking for 70 inside. Well, it's not going to take much to swing a few degrees there. And I can't say very often I've seen a slide layering this on there to get an idea of heat and cool, of electric and gas. And this paints a brilliant picture. I love it.
Yeah, well, this is just energy needs, right? This isn't regardless of fuel, but just showing that severity. So, it becomes an issue really when we look at doing things on a seasonal basis. In a cold climate, how can you have, especially if we're going to go towards a renewable sources of electricity, how can we maximize that production and store it for later use when there might not be as much renewable energy access or resources, I should say, right? So, there's a little bit of issues with short-term and diurnal. The duck curve is intraday issues, and there's a lot of great work, and that could be a whole other session that Rom could do for you on some of the stuff EPRI's doing on that. But the seasonal challenge is something that is where one of my interests are. And just this other graph on the right is basically just showing how much energy storage we have right now in different forms of things. So if we look at underground storage of a gaseous fuel, there's a lot of capacity there that's in place and a lot of infrastructure that's in place. So if we look at decarbonizing things and replacing that fossil gas with, a renewable gas, there's a lot of infrastructure in place that we could take advantage of.
Totally. By infrastructure, are you speaking of the systems for delivering that, or for the buildings that require it?
It could be both the systems for delivering and storing it. And there's, the gas infrastructure extends to a lot of meters on buildings as well, right? As many of us know in the cold climates. So, and even in warm climates, a lot of homes in California, the majority have gas water heaters. So, there's systems that are in place. Some of them are, they're aging, they need improvement. But by and large, there's a lot of capacity for energy storage and utilization there.
Perfect.
Sure.
So how do we get that to be greener, right? Is it possible? And, there's two approaches that are happening simultaneously. One is looking at blending hydrogen into the natural gas system. And then one is creating renewable natural gas, which might come from methane from various sources like landfills right now is the primary source of renewable natural gas. But there's other potential sources which are basically showing on where things can come from in the future here on the right side of the screen. So, this isn't something that's happening necessarily tomorrow, but in the next few years, you're going to see increasing growth of this. There's lots of pilots being done by various utilities showing that all over the country. So,
Jason, can you go back to that last slide?
Yeah.
I found that pretty robust with the agricultural residue. That's a huge area. Food waste is small. Forest is relatively small because of probably how they foster that. And then the animal manure and the landfill are also sizable chunks.
Yeah. I mean, it's a resource we could tap into. It's going to be there. There's a lot of resource there now. I mean, just look at the crop waste from a lot of the marijuana plants, right? There's a lot of stems and, woody biomass that is a waste stream for them right now. Wouldn't it be great if we could convert that to something that's an energy source, right?
So the broad term for that is waste to energy, or is there a different term that's floating around right now?
Yeah, again, RNG is what you'll see a lot, or biogas, you'll see that. So renewable natural gas or biogas are used interchangeably. There's, there's a lot more technical terms we can get into, but that's a different conversation, I think.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. So I wanted to share this one other slide here on how this couples with equipment efficiency. When you look at the potential for fuel to be decarbonized, and I'm using fuel in place of gas because it's not just natural gas anymore. We have, an existing typical water heater that takes in a certain amount. That's what the size that arrow indicates of natural gas to generate hot water, right? Well, we could also look at blending different fuels in to reduce the amount of fossil gas used and supplement that with the renewable gas or hydrogen, and still have that same amount of hot water coming out with existing equipment, right? Now, what if we combine that with next generation equipment, like a gas heat pump, which you'll hear more about maybe later or at the session that Katie talked about. If we're using just traditional fossil gas, you can use less gas going in, but still get that same amount of hot water coming out that you need for a home, right? But and when all of it comes together, it ends up having a significant potential for reducing some of that fossil gas usage, and that's where sort of spreading the risk on different technologies. And if you want to know what hydrogen looks like when it burns, that's what this video is showing right here. We're doing a blend of 30% hydrogen mixed with mainline natural gas, and getting good flames on very sensitive burners without seeing any issues on that.
I think it's brilliant, the use of equipment and substructures that already exist, right? Because in our efforts to green, we always want to reflect on what we already have and what we could use. And so you're saying that so many of the systems, from the water heaters to the stovetops and ranges, can already adapt, and it's the blends and the delivery vehicles that you're working on and exploiting the efficiencies of each of those products as they're combined. Brilliant.
Yeah, there's pilots happening all over the country. People may not even be aware that this is happening in their service area, where gas companies are trying this already.
So Jason, let me ask you this: how much of this is in use today? When I look at the evolution of this life cycle product, where are we with this evolution of high efficiency decarb fuel? Where are you at with that today?
We're several years out from it being mass available, but I think a 5-year time frame for either fuels or the things like the next generation gas equipment isn't unreasonable. Some areas it will be longer. It's just going to depend on various things, and maybe it makes sense to look at things on where it's needed the most. Right.
Thank you.
Can I ask an ignorant question?
You can ask any question, Mark.
So when a lot of these groups that handle the natural gas, they're updating their infrastructure for the new lines that follow our roadways, that follow our business ways to provide that comfort. When they are updating that infrastructure, is the linings of those pipes and the
Yep.
use of the pipes already to the pressures and conditions of these new materials and gases?
That's a great question, Mark. We're actually doing a lot of research on that. What's the impact? What are the issues of corrosion, pressurization, leakage rates, embrittlement? These are all issues that need to be explored, and we're working on that essentially to see what those impacts are, to better understand what the system can and cannot tolerate.
I look at it as the person that has their old favorite Zippo lighter, right? They want to still have the cool Zippo, and they just want to add a different fuel to it. So we don't think of our furnaces and our water heaters and our stoves as being a cool Zippo lighter, but it's the same thing. It's a matter of transferring from one to another, but still doing its job.
Yeah. All right. So looking at the time here, I want to try to get through this and make sure Ram gets a chance to chime in on some things here. So when we're decarbonized buildings, there's definitely a pathway forward for electric, particularly in new construction. I think it makes, the stuff you guys talk about every week on this show makes things better, right? And easier for that to happen. And there's great technologies. There's still some needs to explore there. I think carbon dioxide-based heat pumps are very promising technologies. And heat pump water heaters, for example, that need 120 volts. Another good need that can help reduce that decarbonization cost, right? Because that's another side of the coin here. When we look at the number of homes that are out there, there's a lot of homes that exist right now, and the average lifespan of the homes that you guys and your audience are building will be over 130 years, just based on today's data, right? In the future, with better buildings, it might be even longer. So how can we make sure that we can ensure a good path for those buildings that are in place now, as well as those that are coming forward? That's sort of the macro level that we're looking at here. And I really wanted to get to this slide to give Ram an opportunity to give some thoughts on this as we go forward. Ram, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you guys. Thank you, Jason, and thanks Willie and Mark for the invitation. So it's kind of interesting, right? I mean, there's been a lot of talk about electrification lately. I remember when we started doing our first net zero neighborhoods in California, fuel switching was not a good word. And this goes back to 2013-14. We built the first net zero communities down in Southern California. And we were electrifying more from the viewpoint of getting more flexible resources for the grid, not just from a decarbonization perspective. But now as we go forward further, right, we know that we can get to, as Jason mentioned, especially in warmer climates, we know we can get to all electric net zero new construction, especially in the warmer climates. And there's quite a few examples of that. We've done some, others have done many communities. Builders are kind of buying onto it slowly. So that's happening. But what about these existing buildings? And I think that's where the big challenge comes in. When we look at all these roadmaps that are out there for decarbonization of buildings, there's just a lot of discussion about decarbonize the grid and electrify everything. But one of the things we see is that electrification of existing buildings has many barriers today, right? It doesn't mean that it's not the easiest, it's not the preferred choice. I think it still is probably the most technically feasible pathway today, but there are still some barriers to be overcome. And so for a customer, we have to make sure that we are not adding cost, either for the first cost of installation or for their cost of operation. And I think that's what leads us to this concept of hybrid pathways. So when we talk about hybrid pathways, what we're saying is, hey, let's drive deep efficiency wherever you can, especially around weatherization, especially around the building shell. Let us electrify what we can, but also let us not try to go full electrification right away where it doesn't make sense. So in many cases, Jason mentioned the 120-volt heat pump water heaters. Those could be actually a great low-cost hybrid solution for water heating electrification. Today, if you were to rip out a existing 40-gallon gas water heater in a multifamily affordable housing complex, and we have tried to do many of these, it gets pretty expensive because the current products in the market either don't fit, don't have enough power capability, the panels are not big enough. So how do we look at these as hybrid pathways, right? So when we try to apply these as hybrid pathways, let's do what we can. Maybe we put in this 120-volt heat pump water heater that takes out 70-80% and electrifies about 70 to 80% of the energy use, but still leave your gas water heater in there so that it can take up both the peaks as well as make sure that the customer doesn't run out of hot water. So that's the concept of the hybrid pathway, which is looking at it from a very customer-centric viewpoint and doing what is feasible today, what is cost-effective, and then trying to make sure that we have our options open. So if we get low-carbon fuels in 15 years, maybe that's the way we take care of the other 30% of the carbon content in buildings, right? So it's about trying to make it this concept of affordability sequencing. Customers are not going to be able to buy an electric car and a heat pump water heater all at the same time. Let's figure out what they can buy first, and let's give them a pathway to decarbonize. So that's the overall concept that we've been working with. And Jason, I think a lot of what you mentioned fits really well into that overall concept that EPRI and GTI are working on together.
So we're gonna take a break and go to some comments and questions here because there's some things I think we want to fill in the gap. But when we come back, Ram, I really, cost. What does this cost to do, and how do we get it to a place to where it's affordable, on a larger scale? Maybe we can touch on that a little bit as well, because a lot of this is just in the beginning. Jason, what you were touching on is kind of just in the beginning. What do we have to do as an industry? And what can we do with our show to make this more achievable and get it out there? So let's keep that in the back of our minds on what we can do to help make this more mainstream than, bringing up the rear and trying to catch up. Because I think that's what we're going to really need to make all of this happen. But first, we got a lot of people in the comments that want to say hello, everybody. So you guys don't have anything to do. Can we talk to some folks or what?
Dave, before we go comments, I want to echo the two parts that really stuck out for me in Ram's description. And he was saying, how do we make this feasible for folks with existing buildings, both initial cost and continued costs, right? So that is a true instrument to follow. And then the other point you talked about is approaching each of the structures uniquely and what's involved with their envelope and the infrastructure. I think all those points, a lot of us in the industry and in our silos are familiar with that path, but we don't have that microphone to get it forward, and you conveyed it so crystal clear as the blue skies behind you, Ram.
They are very blue.
Yeah, no, that's just what you see. That's the California sunshine, right? Jason mentioned it. So that's what makes net zero possible out here so easily.
Well, listen, don't get any sunburn on our account, okay? We'd feel bad for you, especially
no problem,
those up in Chicago. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Let's do a couple shout outs. Hey, Mark, do you know this guy right here, Ben Hershey? Mark and Dave, 2 thumbs up. Now, this is one of the guys whose dad started the original components world for our industry. So glad to have you, Ben. Good to see your Forward Solutions group in the house. All right. We all know this gentleman. Go ahead, Mark. We're going to run through these.
Scott Farbman with a PH. Happy Friday. I've been looking forward to this episode and hearing Jason LaFleur and Ram explain how we can reach carbon zero built environment while still using gas. Scott, thank you for making a short comment because your comments normally take up my face, but I'm ready for your questions as well, Scott. We're poking you, brother.
Yeah, there's quite a few here. I'm going to be running through them quickly. Peter Molinar says it's a fine Friday. And then we also have Mr. G-Pod in the house. Hello, folks. Glad to see Katie back. Yeah, it was great having Katie back. She's always a lot of fun.
Dave, I wanna let Rob and Jason know that on the show we don't allow the F to be used. Everyone must use PH instead of F so that we get the word out about Passive House. That's why you see all the comments with Happy Friday.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah, buddy. And
Makes
here's somebody in the very beginning didn't get PH nothing. I got nothing when I started this show. Now I'm like a PH Passive House ninja. I don't know. I love it. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to learn. And it makes sense. So let's keep running through these. So I want to get through and say hi to some people here. All right. This is David Goldstein. Go ahead, Mark.
David Goldstein says, hello all. And hello back to you, David. Looking forward, he'll get it next time. Forward with a PH, David, to this discussion on new developments in the HVAC world. We need more of this. The HVAC stands for heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. It's an acronym that we use religiously. In North America, we tend to deliver our ventilation with our heat and cool. That's not the way the rest of the world works, but HVAC is an industry term if you haven't heard it before.
Yep, for sure, for sure. And hey, listen, if out there you don't know David Goldstein, you should. He's an HVAC engineer. And get this, guys. He came up with a system where all the mechanicals run down the exterior cladding of any size building and can be retrofitted using a panelized cladding wall system. So David Goldstein and I have had some conversations. So it's pretty neat. It's not proven yet, but they're getting there. Anyhow, thanks, David. I'm glad you finally tuned in and joined us. You are now hanging out with some masterminds in the space. All right, we're going to run through some quick hellos. Mark, go for it.
Michael says D for diploma. Michael, you're a genius. If anyone hasn't met you, you get ready for a 4-hour conversation. Michael could take you to avenues that you've never been. Thanks for being on here. And looks like you got your CPHC. Congratulations on getting that.
Right. You can't just say CPHC and not tell the world what it means, Mark. You know, not everybody went to CPHC school.
It stands for a cool person having comfort. Another way of saying it is a certified passive house consultant. And I believe he achieved his through the FIAS branch. I think I have that right, that you got certified under FIAS. So welcome to the group.
Right. Love it. All right, George Ryman in the house. Happy Friday from Phoenix, Arizona. He put the F there just to joke off on us a little bit. All right, George, the humor never ends with George. Good to see you. And we're across the pond in the UK. Hi, Dave, Jen, Mark, Katie, and Jason. And he would have put Ram if you were in the show when he joined us. Good to see you, Andrew. Thank you for joining us. Scott Farman says he hopes you weren't driving, and clearly you are not now. All right, Dave, let's see. Bob Kelly. Oh, Buzz is in the house. Look at that. What's happening, Buzz? Thank you. Bob Kelly says hydrogen will make for a fantastic future. Please talk about H2 on demand. The potential is enormous. Anybody want to address that? Short. Is it an easy topic to talk about H2 on demand?
That's a bigger topic. Would love to come back and talk more about that.
There you go, Bob Kelly. So we're gonna have to bring that one back in house.
So Jason was already slotted for his second visit, but I guess now H2 will be his third visit. So cool.
Perfect. All right, I'm sure we're going to get into this, but David did ask that he's very interested in learning the cost of carbon-free gas compared to natural gas. Is there a cost comparison? Is that something we are going to talk deeper about?
Yeah, one of the challenges with natural gas is that it's very cheap, and any kind of process above that is more expensive. So, it is a premium. There are programs people are looking at to basically opt into, that kind of fuel. There's some interesting developments in that market, but yeah, it's not cost competitive. It's driven by other motivations right now.
So, Jason, if we have a smell for natural
Jason,
gas,
when I last looked at it, right, I was using I was using a factor of 3x. Is that accurate for renewable natural gas versus?
I think that's a good
natural
rough
gas
factor.
today?
Yeah, Ram, you're right.
Obscure
Perfect.
question. We have a smell for natural gas that we add and a smell for propane gas that we add. When
Yep.
it's a combined gases, is it going to smell like a 7-Eleven candy, or is it going to have to make a new flavor smell for us?
So we're getting into the weeds a little bit, but no, they still add the odorant, so it should still smell the same that you're used to. But there's other things that you have to be concerned about that are in there as well. But that's
Understood.
That's another show, Jason. Is that what
Yep.
you're telling me? It's another show?
Could be not from me, but from one of my colleagues. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Perfect. Go ahead. There's a question from Scott Farbman. Mark.
Scott with a PH Farbman says, Jason, could you explain how landfill gas is considered renewable? Oh, landfills are Jason's most detested word, Scott. So go for it, Jason.
Well, ideally we wouldn't be having a lot of landfill gas because we would be better about things going into the landfill to begin with on the front end. But unfortunately, that's not the world we live in yet. So there is a lot of stuff, like a good example is just food waste and other things that go into the landfills that do decay and generate methane. Right now, a lot of times that methane is either released, vented from the landfill gas directly, or hopefully at least something's done to contain that. And sometimes that's flared, sometimes that's driving a turbine at the plant to generate power at that local plant. But there's a lot of untapped potential for that methane that would otherwise be going into the atmosphere and harvesting that. I think the agriculture industry has an even bigger opportunity than the landfill industry for capturing and harnessing that methane.
Well said.
And if the world doesn't know, agriculture is beating our butts when it comes to technology and education in their industry. In the offsite world, passive house world, construction world, we are in last place. I don't see that changing anytime this year, but
Dave, that's because for a long time they've had a book called The Farmer's Almanac, and we've never had the Construction Almanac, right? So we react to building season, and they react to changes in climate and prepare for it. So wouldn't you think there'd be groups that approach the construction industry based on climate and weather changes? Wouldn't you think they would exist?
You guys do this show every day. You can call it the BS Almanac and not the BS Friday show.
The BS Almanac. There's a T-shirt right there, right? What BS climate zone do you live in? Coming to you live with our new book. All right. Where are we? Here we go. Let's see. There you go, Mark. Go ahead.
So Jay Klossner says, wouldn't an on-demand hot water heater cost less using the combined gas instead of new stored hot water? Jay, I have to give my classic line. There's no such thing as a hot water heater. You don't heat hot water. It's a cold water heater or a room temperature water heater. But Jason, go for it.
I'm not sure I totally caught the question. So it's, would a tankless using the blended fuel be?
Wouldn't an on-demand hot water heater cost less? There it is.
Cost less using the blended gas versus a new a storage-based water heater.
Storage-based. I think that's interesting. So Jason may or may not be aware of this, but our friend Corbett just finished his house down on the east, and he delivered cold water lines to each of his bathrooms. And at the bathrooms, he has a point source water heater, right? And so I don't know of other projects, Jason, that have that. And I know that Gary Klein is looking into what Corbett's doing. So you're running less copper to an area. Right. And I don't know if Corbett's is on a loop. That's another discussion. But Jay, I think it depends always on the distance to tap that you have and how you're storing it. So a lot of folks tend to use their old water heater as a reservoir to their new water heater so that the water isn't quite going through that large delta. I love you too, Bronwyn. And so that's a whole step there. So I think
Yeah,
I
on
think
an
there's
operating
more to
cost
talk
basis,
about.
I think that's right.
Yep.
Perfect. All right. We're going to fly through some more comments here, and then we're going to get back to this presentation. We're already at 12 o'clock. Well, where I'm at 12 o'clock anyhow, 2 hours behind everybody else. Ben Hershey is very active today. What's happening, Mr. Ben Hershey? Outside of the Dave Cooper live show, what is GTI doing to educate builders, HVAC engineers on these technologies so they are used at the outset? Great question, Ben.
Great. I want to work with you. And when I say you, it's anybody that wants to get education, these education events out there more. Seriously, it's technology transfer is a challenge for any of these newer technologies, electric, gas, what have you. We need to do better at getting it out there. So some of the things that we do are, working with folks like Katie to host sessions, continue to host tours. Virtual tours are great for giving people a feel on things. Developing curriculum with AIA lunch and learn type curriculum, or being at events, things like that. So those are all, they're important initiatives that we all need for this market transformation that we're looking to achieve.
Yeah, Ben, it's a perfect question. That's why I asked Jason if things were opening up at GTI earlier, because he had Sam Rashkin and he had a local representation from Scott Sanders and many different groups that were talking about their approach to the building stock and to the new projects that were coming online. And every time I've been to a GTI presentation, all the seats in standing room only are filled, Ben. So when they speak, there's a large audience. And I agree with what Jason says. We just need more audiences. So the content
and more educators. Really, we need more educators too. We're doing some interesting work, video game based training. Actually, I could show you pictures of that some other time. Basically, it's a VR training world to help people learn about some of the technologies and how to work with them more on the service and operation side. But yeah, so there's all kinds of fun things.
So listen, Jason, we are live streaming our show into about 50 universities across the country as part of their course room work right now. So they are tuning in, and we have professors on the show monthly now. Last week we had Purdue, Tuskegee, and University of Denver professors on the show talking about where we're going. And then also I might as well put it up there, July 19th is another professor spotlight. So we're going to have 3 more professors on from around the country talking about all the different things that they're doing in their universities. But what we're finding out is the students are still coming out of university behind the curve. Our industry is changing so fast. The knowledge is changing so fast. COVID's making a difference without them being able to do their programs on site, their competitions. So if you want to talk further on how we can bring what you guys are doing and mingle your work with our work to bring this better education to these universities, well, we can talk about that after the show.
Absolutely. I know this doesn't apply to anything, but whenever I hear about professors, I always think of, a PhD, right? A doctor. And nothing gets me laughing more than Chevy Chase and Dan Aykroyd and Spies Like Us when they go, doctor. So Dave, whenever you have a professor on the show that's a doctor, just make sure you say doctor.
All right, here. Okay, doctor. Got it. So, okay, doctor.
There you go.
All right, let's do a couple quick comments here and then just get back because I want to make sure everybody gets their spotlight, especially the people that love Mark Bare Naked Willie. Bronan says Ram is saying very smart things. Ram, unfortunately, his camera's off or a signal loss. We don't have a robust product market here in the U.S. yet, so that should be scaled rapidly via demand. But the reality is our grassy friends will be with us for a little while longer. Phased is the way.
Wow.
I like that.
Hey, there's a t-shirt, huh?
Yeah.
Broadway, that's great. Are our grassy friends our cows? Is that what we're referring to? Is that our grassy friends?
Gassy.
Oh,
friends.
gassy. Got it.
Gassy.
My grandson.
Gassy cows. Hey, listen, I should take my camera right outside. There's about 500 cows right behind us here where I'm at. So we can go out there, put the microphone out and get some wind. All right.
Virtual hug to your grandkids there, Buzz, on a Friday. Jason, how many more slides do we have here?
As many as you'll let me show.
Yeah, let's go. I'm turning my mic off.
One of the questions, Dave, that you started that whole comment thread with there was about costs and making things affordable. And I think this sort of gets to that question, right? If we look at, and so this is New York, we're doing quite a bit of work in New York. In fact, I'll show you a cool envelope project later. But if you look at that whole idea of that space heating load being higher than the cooling load, what would be the impact if an existing home without any other improvements, particularly without any envelope improvements, were electrified? There could be some significant grid constraint issues. And this is sort of what I think Ron is speaking to, right? The value of having, and I'm going to start using Bronwyn's phrase, a phased in approach is very valuable here, where you have a diversity of fuel choices to meet those loads in a way that makes sense. And we're working with controllers right now that can be grid interactive, right? So if we do have a heavily electrified heating grid in the future, and there's a peaking scenario like what we saw in Texas earlier this year, how could we, with a smart controller, shift from an electric-based air source heat pump, for example, over to a gas furnace backup system that might be in place? And that's what we really mean by hybrid systems, right? It's both an electric and gas on the space heating side. And there's some interesting questions that we could ask there around looking at it as a non-wires alternative for electric utilities, solving peak issues, looking at it as a glide path for future electrification. So this is some of the work that we're excited about. And we've worked with Ram. I don't know if he's still on or not, but we've partnered with Epic on a few proposals to DOE to be exploring this in much more detail. The other thing I wanted to briefly touch on is building envelopes. And I think, we kind of talked about this a little bit. You guys talk about it every day, it seems like. These disaster events are increasing, and if we reframe our buildings to think of them as batteries, we have a little bit of an opportunity to look at this as a mitigating and resilient strategy that can help improve our built environment and the grid going forward, right? And so, of course, everyone's seen a passive house design. I really like this photo because it shows the no thermal bridging on a passive house versus a lot of thermal bridging adjacent to it. But, we see these events increasing more and more, and it's not just mechanical solutions that we need. We need comprehensive solutions, right? So one of the approaches we're working on now, actually, with using those vacuum insulated panels we talked about earlier, Dave, is a holistic approach to retrofitting homes, where we're looking at scanning of a building facade with a LiDAR camera. And this is our actually our campus building that we were testing on, so it doesn't look like a home. It's an industrial facility basically where we're doing gasification of biomass, I think, right now. But the same principle could apply to doing this on a commercial or residential building, and then figuring out what's the optimal way to design a retrofit panel in a prefabricated environment to help improve that in a panelized system that is only a couple inches thick, incorporating vacuum insulated panels to get to an R30 area weighted average across that 2.5-inch thick retrofit panel that can then directly support whatever cladding you want to put on the outside, right? And so the other side of this is, how do you put it together, right? So working with a partner, Fraunhofer's doing some great work with this right now on bringing in augmented reality to this panelized construction process, so what piece goes where in the right place. You help eliminate installer errors and help expedite this retrofit process so it's minimally invasive to the homeowner, right? So, Mark, I'm sure you have some comments on this one.
I'm just smiling. Some of this looks very familiar, and I just love it. It's what we need to do. It's finding approaches, demonstrating solutions for scalable scalable adoption to our existing building stock. And we have to really pause and just note the amount of folks that are working on this. What the approach is when the building is saved, the embodied energy of that structure can then move on to another 150-year life cycle. And we don't have to take that debris and move it to, as Jason said, to a landfill, but also then the operational energy, the operational carbon of that building is greatly reduced, so that the renewables that are needed for the comfort and for the people, right? And for the people who are living there and spending the monies is reduced. So all of this is existing building brilliance.
Very cool.
Yep, good stuff. Good stuff. So I know we're pretty much over time, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, but just to sort of plug for what Katie talked about earlier, we'll be doing a whole program on these heat pump technologies, and there are gas heat pump technologies out there. In fact, there's one right over there in my house. You see a picture of it on the left there, where it's a combi system. And so a combi system is, why not do two end uses with one device, right? So let's put the combustion outside so there's no IAQ issues. Let's have one device heating a loop that can then heat an air handler, which is shown in the other photo there, as well as a indirect storage heater, just like you have on solar thermal systems, and have a loop of warmed fluid from a gas-fired air source or gas-fired heat pump being used. And with that, by supplementing the energy in the air with the thermal combustion, it gets to over 140 AFUE equivalent, right? And so we demonstrated this during the polar vortex a couple of years ago, worked fine down to -30 without any kind of backup heat necessary, because it basically works like a condensing boiler at those really, really, really cold temperatures. So without losing capacity. So it's kind of interesting. So you can learn more about this at Katie's event in a couple of weeks. But just a quick payback, you were asking about costs, Dave. The whole thought of this is that, you can really minimize those operating cost impacts across different climate zones with the deployment of a next generation technology. And this is about, I'd say, 2 or 3 years away from being mass available. About 2 years away from that, I think, is the commercialization plan. So a little bit more demonstrating over the next heating season, and then it'll be commercially introduced.
Jason, in the upper corner, it says 140% AFUE.
Yeah.
Can you break that down for us?
It's the annual fuel utilization efficiency. So it's not quite the right metric for this type of system that's doing two different end uses, but it's a metric that many people are familiar with. So we also rate this to the new ANSI standard that's specifically designed to rate performance of these combi type equipments as well. But so it's the equipment efficiency.
I like when you ask an acronym and you answer it with other acronyms. That's brilliant.
Sorry.
So let me ask you this, Jason, because most people, when they shop for appliances or anything, they see Energy Star rated 90%, 80% efficiency. What's the difference between what that says and what that means, just for somebody out there that may not know that?
Yeah, so the worst furnace you could buy is 80% efficient right now, right? That's the minimum floor. That's the D- furnace. And, an Energy Star is going to be somewhere around 90, 92% efficient, right? And so then you've got some that are 96, and you even got some that are up towards 98. But, theoretically, you can't get from a traditional furnace combustion, you can't get more than 100% efficiency from a traditional furnace. But when you make it a heat pump, that's where you can increase the energy output versus the energy input.
And the Energy Star, is that based on that efficiency is based on the combustion heating side, or is that also based on the cooling side? Is that, or do they truly have two different efficiencies?
There are two different efficiencies, yes, for the two different heating versus cooling.
That big yellow sticker, we might not be looking at all the facts.
Well, typically the furnace is sold just for the heating side, right? So, but a heat pump's going to be doing both.
Yep.
So in that case, it is
Right.
a little more. So it depends on the equipment. Is the short answer.
It depends. There it is,
Yeah.
folks.
It's
The
like every
building
answer,
science
right?
favorite answer.
Depends.
It's valid.
Yeah. Are we back to how much is a bag of groceries?
Oh, there
And
you go. My
I mean,
favorite.
Mark, seriously, if you build me a net zero home and I leave my windows open all winter long, is it net zero?
Well, it depends, because if you're in San Diego and it's a net zero home, it's still 72 degrees all winter long, right?
Yeah. There
That's
you
exactly it. Perfect. Love it.
That was a trick question, Dave, but I got it.
You're quick, dude. I love it. You did a great job. All right, let's keep going, Jason.
All right. Well, I'm just going to skip over this. You can hear more. Look, the key thing is the bottom line there. The event on July 15th, where you can hear more about it. I guess the important thing to note is that these systems don't use traditional refrigerants. They use completely zero GWP or global warming potential refrigerants. That's a big issue that affects the operational carbon that Mark mentioned a little bit earlier. Right. So I think this is my last content slide here. And this is just, looking at things comprehensively in a way that makes it smart for the best deployment of the best assets at the best time is really what we're increasingly looking to do. So whether you're doing some bidirectional charging with the EV, there's my first EV there down in the photo, plugged into a microgrid, or using an air source heat pump, or using micro combined heat and power like we talked about at the beginning, or photovoltaics, looking at the weather conditions, looking at what the grid is requiring, or what the emissions on the grid might be. There's a lot of different decision factors that can come into play, and it'd be great. And one of the things we're looking at is building this resilience and control systems that can help integrate all these different assets in a smart, intelligent way that delivers benefits without sacrificing comfort.
Yeah, this is such an instructional graphic. You're very good with your slides. I've always said you're probably one of the best out there. And these are things that when all of us were going through our life in construction and the trades, this wasn't here, right? These are new adaptions, and so or adoptions. And so the fact that we're using the dollar sign, we're using the comfort, and we're talking about so many different choices, from the sunshine to the electric and to the combined heat and power. It just means that we're really getting somewhere. And I'm pleased that there's professionals that know how to bring this forward, and we're very fortunate for groups like that.
Yeah, one of the things that's neat as we get into this, you can look at things from, to your point about dollars or CO2, you might have different decision points. If your focus is cost control, you might be running different systems than if your focus is environmental reduction or energy reduction, right? So you'll have different set points, and partly right now it's because natural gas is pretty cheap. That may change. Hopefully it does in the future. Right now, if you're cost focused and sensitive to that, then that might be a driving decision, or the utilities driving decision could be more focused on the environmental aspect. So, different levels and strategies can inform which systems are used.
There's upfront cost, there's operational cost, there's maintenance costs, and then there's the cost to the world around us. And then all of this is based on one thing, and that's the benefits to people. That's what this is all based on. So without these things, we'd still be sitting in an uninsulated, unheated, unventilated space. And so engineers, keep on engineering.
That's it. Jason, what is your educational background? Like, what engineering wise? Just tell us, because this is big thinking.
It is, and I have to give credit to the team that I work with. I work with an incredible group of a lot of smart people looking for more. As I mentioned earlier, there's my hiring link of someone I'm looking for me right now to help. But I'm actually one of the folks in our building efficiency team that is not an engineer by training. I've kind of backed into it, as many in the building science world have. you tend to get into systems level thinking. And I've actually got a liberal arts degree, and my background is in education. So that's partly where I think maybe that benefits me a little bit on some of the stuff. But yeah. Sometimes I feel like I remember Milton from Office Space. Like I talk to the customers so the engineers don't have to. I get a little bit of that sometimes.
Please don't make me move my desk. I don't want to go down there. Please don't make me move my desk. So your graphic is great. So this is also good in the network. If you know folks in California and Illinois, there's 15 positions that they're scouting for right now. So tell your friends to forward their resume, and the graphic there, the BAM, right? The peanut butter and jam. I love that graphic. Very well said.
Yep. Peanut butter and jelly, electric, gas, everything can work together in a way that helps get us the benefits that we all need and want. Right. So
better together. Hey, listen, we got to collaborate if we're going to change this industry and push it forward. We have to bring everybody together. You can't stay in your silos anymore. We need everybody to work together and collaborate to not only just bring this out to mainstream, but to better it for everybody else and our future of our children and the future of our built environment moving forward, because it is changing. The change is here. People are starting to pay attention. People want healthier homes. People want better living. People want more cost-effective living. People don't want the high energy bills, and nobody wants acid rain either. So, let's just keep driving this whole thing forward together. And Jason, I think what you guys are doing there is awesome. And hopefully we can collaborate and bring what you're doing to Dave Cooper Live a little bit, and Mark and what he's doing at Passive House and the Accelerator and everybody else that's out there trying to push this message. Appreciate you.
Well, thanks for helping get the word out, Dave. I think work from you guys, or you and Mark, folks like you, helps all of us learn and share with one another, and that's how we're going to win. Hey, Rom's back. All right.
Yeah, I brought Ron back in here. I saw his camera came back on, so we wanted to say hello. I'm going to look and see what we have. If there's any big questions or comments, we can take a few more seconds here. But it looks scrolling.
Ron, do you have any final thoughts while we have you, real quick?
No, I think this was a great session, guys. As we talked about, right? I think we just have to figure out how we do this, where we are not increasing customer costs, but at the same time, we are driving towards the decarbonization pathways. And I think all solutions are on the table. So that's the way to move forward. And I think let's focus on getting our energy efficiency and all the work that you guys are doing with your retrofit building panels and all those things in, because that's going to help us. Whether we go electrification or renewable natural gas or whichever way we go, let's do efficiency first and get that done.
Yeah.
Yes. Brilliant. That's a great, I got no wrap up words. You nailed it, Ram. Thank you for being here. And also Katie, thank you for giving the opening introduction.
Yeah, for sure. Katie's always a lot of fun to have on. We need more of that energy in this world for sure. Mark, who do we have coming up for next Friday, my friend?
Well, next Friday is also a friend of Jason. Ram, you might know him as well. This is Act 3 of Doug Farr. So Doug Farr will now be returning for the third time. And we all know when Doug hits the screen that the agenda of Mark and Dave is out the window, because he's got more slides than he could handle in the time. And we're thrilled to have Doug back right before the holiday weekend.
There is no stopping Doug. In fact, Mark, I think we're just going to stay mute the whole time, and Jen and Doug can go, because he just goes. But you know what? He also has a lot of great things to say, and it's worth listening to. So if you don't know Doug Farr, you definitely need to show up. And if you missed Act 1 and 2, guess what? They're on our YouTube channel. You can watch them anytime under the playlist BS Friday. So you can get your fill of Mark and Dave whenever you want, 24 hours a day, which is awesome, awesome, awesome. All right, listen, everybody. Mark, I got some announcements to make as well. Tomorrow, Coffee with Dave. Join us, 9 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Mountain Time. The further west I go, the earlier my show has to start. Didn't think that one through when I started on the East Coast. And also, we're going to be doing a special event tomorrow just to do some fun things of a DIY dry stack built house. This is using cordwood and sawdust and cement and concrete to bring a house together. And this cordwood runs all the way through 16, 24-inch walls, I think they are. So it's a really interesting process. And the person we're going to have on the show tomorrow is a world-renowned expert and teaches at universities and other places across the country. So we said we'd do a special show. Mark, I think this is something you'd really find very interesting, especially in the BS environment.
I have to ask, is this a good friend of Aaron Peterson's that's doing the presentation?
So that's not, no, this is different.
Okay.
Different guy. They're all intertwined.
Perfect.
So not who you're thinking of. So
we all need more cordwood buildings. I'm anxious to see it. It sounds great.
Yep. It's going to be a lot of fun. And also, you got to tune in. We got Mark Purcell, CEO of the National Housing Endowment, on, and Greg Ugaldi, the immediate past chairman of NAHB, will be on this Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. So you definitely want to tune in for that show. We will have some updates on the lumber, workforce development, and other topics as well. But also on that note, Mark, because the lumber's fluctuating, you probably know these people. We're going to also have on the following Monday, Ashley Bulkhart from Material Exchange. This is where you can buy and trade lumber online. You do not have to go to the lumber store. They will drop ship it from a lumber yard to you. It's a really cool thing that they're doing, and they have a bead on the market. We're going to learn a lot about that as well. And then, of course, our shows are booked out, so we'll be sending out some emails with some other stuff coming up. But I wanted to get those things put out there right away.
Yeah, I'm interested in seeing the cord. I'm interested in the updates from Greg with the housing starts and where we're at. And Ashley and his group at Materials Exchange are pretty awesome folks. They're Illinois-based, Jason. And for those of us that kind of grew up in the lumber industry, Ashley and his family, very familiar names. And the rest of the crew there, nice going, Materials Exchange.
Yeah, it's going to be great. They really are starting to gain some traction on what they're doing. And I think this lumber crisis actually gave them a leg up, I think, and it's about time.
The phrase that you'll get a kick out of, Jason, I've been using this a lot recently, is throughout our lifetime, our generation and the generation prior, after church, we've had discussions on the price at the pump or, what our sports team did. And this past year, we haven't talked about the price of the pump, and we haven't talked about sports teams. We've talked about wood fiber. So it's pretty incredible. I mean, that has been a topic of main discussion. I don't know if it'll ever return in our lifetime, but it's pretty awesome that we're all talking about wood a bit more.
That we are. All right. So, Jason, outside of the special event for Heat Pump Palooza, registration link below, 7:15 at 3 o'clock Central. You guys sign up there. You can learn more from Jason. Jason, Mark, Ram, stay right where you're at. We'll come back to you after the outro. Other than that, Mark, we good? You good?
I'm ready to have Jason back for IAQ and H2 later on.
Awesome. All right, fellas. Thanks so much.
Thanks,
stay tight.
everyone.
We'll come back to you. We'll come right back to you. Bye, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you, everyone.